morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. You can call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up on the show today, Megan Kling is going to be joining us after the 9:30 news. Megan had a complication in her pregnancy and subsequently had to travel out of state when that 1849 measure was still here in place in Wisconsin. That's no longer the case. But she had to travel out of state in order to get the health care that she needed. And her experience has been recorded in the Journal Sentinel, the Wisconsin Examiner, the New York Times. So we're going to be talking to Megan Kling about her experience and why she has come forward to talk about this. It's very important.
Yes.
And very brave of her.
Yes.
It's very brave of her. So we're going to talk to Megan Kling after the 9:30 news. In hour number 2, don't worry about us deporting all the people who are picking fruit and vegetables in our fields. And don't worry about all the people who are doing work that it seems like a whole lot of Americans don't want to do. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins has got the answer, Greg.
Oh, I'm sure it's a nuanced, well thought out response and solution.
There are 34 million people on Medicaid.
Are they able-bodied?
Apparently so, and Brooke's got the plan for them, so we'll kick that around in hour number 2.
Can't wait.
Also, shoes and flying. Some new news about shoes.
Oh, yeah.
We'll touch on that briefly next hour. And, of course, for the last half an hour of the show, we lighten things up with audio sorbet. Today's burning question, do you pajama?
Do you pajama?
Do you pajama?
Do you say pajama or do you say pajama?
That too.
There you are.
Do you pajama? Do you wear pajamas? If not, what do you wear? That's coming up for Audio Sorbet after 10:30. And we will wrap up the show with Tisbet, also known as This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Is a rose by any other name really still a rose? That's coming up at the end of the show around 10:51, so I hope you can stick around for that. I did want to start off with this mention from the horrible news out of Texas continues. The death toll continues to rise. Texas flooding now has killed more than 110 people, and there are over 160 who are still missing. And I also saw footage this morning from New Mexico, which also just had a big flash flood that came through and wiped a whole bunch of houses away. If you would like to do something, and I know there are a lot of people who want to do something to help, they are please asking people to stay away from that area.
Yes.
It makes it very difficult when you have groups that are not aligned with other groups to find out who's covering what and things like that. And the last thing they want to have to do is go rescue someone who's trying to do a good thing.
Yeah.
So they're asking, please don't come to the area unless you are signed up with a specific rescue group. And the other thing I saw yesterday, people are flying drones over the area, their personal drones. And a drone yesterday hit a rescue helicopter.
Yes. I mean,
can we not do this and let these folks do their jobs? That's all I'm saying.
I know. But I don't know why we're shocked. Why are you shocked by this?
Well, I would like to think that they're trying, some of these people have their hearts in the right place and they think that they can help and maybe find someone that has been missed so far. But I also think that there are others whose motivations are not necessarily quite so pure.
Well, yeah, and that's why the latter portion of that sentence is why I'm not shocked.
Yeah, I guess. But anyway, if you would like to do something, I would suggest the Red Cross. I would also suggest World Central Kitchen. If you're not familiar with World Central Kitchen, they're a charity that goes all over the world to disaster areas and feeds people.
Yeah.
Headed up by Chef
Jose Andres.
Jose Andres.
Jose Andres. Yeah.
Jose Andres,
Yeah.
yes. So World Central Kitchen is also another good place to make a donation, or you can donate blood. It doesn't seem like I'm donating blood in Wisconsin. What difference does that make? It makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference just because, I mean, everywhere needs it. And
everywhere needs it.
And it's just always, it's a good thing just to do. And If you've listened to this show before, you've heard me say this, but I'm going to repeat it because it bears repeating all the time. If every single available person, if every person who is able to give blood gave once a year, there would never be a shortage. Period. Done.
So please consider those 3 things. We will include links in our show notes if you would like to follow up and make a donation and try and help after that horrific flooding in Texas. Bringing things back a little bit closer to home, Derek Van Orden's in the news.
Why? What did he do this time?
He is in today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel from Lawrence Andrea. Derek Van Orden claims credit for Wisconsin's extra Medicaid dollars after voting to cut the program.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're even surprised by this anymore.
I saw this story come up over the weekend, and it was one of those things where you shrugged your shoulders and said, of course
He did.
Because what we have seen in the past, and I will use another Wisconsin congressman as an example, Congressman Tom Tiffany. When
Yes.
the infrastructure repair bill came out
Under the Biden administration.
which has brought jobs and projects and money and economic relief. You don't have to believe me. I believe the economists, and they're smarter than the words that you have if you think I'm wrong. So whatever. Tom Tiffany voted against that. He voted no for it. Of course he did. It's bad spending. Tom Tiffany, no. Who was at the Blotnick Bridge standing next to Tammy Baldwin who voted yes?
Tom Tiffany.
It was Tom Tiffany.
It was, yeah.
And we see examples of this all the time. It's been it's been happening for a long time, but it goes back to there are examples from the Obama administration when they did the rescue bill. Paul Ryan, another congressman from Wisconsin, who said no, this is overspending, don't like it, requested $30 million for his district. Even though he voted no. Said no to it, but can I have some money, please?
Would you mind, please?
So we are right back where we always are with someone, in this case, Derek Van Orden, who is a liar and a hypocrite. And I say for me, this is a traitor, period. He has the gall to stand up and say, first of all, that SNAP benefits won't go down a nickel. His words, they won't go down a nickel. Votes for the budget blueprint, votes for the budget bill, and then finally does the final vote after the Senate went through. This will have detrimental effect on SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare. He grew up a poor kid. He said so.
Yes.
Grew up a poor kid on food stamps, government cheese, and he voted against the interest of the people who need these programs. And now he has the nerve to stand up and call Tony Evers and say, you need to protect these rural hospitals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a bigger example of what I'm not going to say it in the air.
Good.
This is just shameful and disgusting. And who does he think he is? I mean, honestly.
Well, obviously he thinks this works for him or he wouldn't do things like this. And that's why I think it's important to kind of point out these little things so that people are aware. And again, we're a small company. We're a new company.
Yeah.
We ask you if you feel like you learn something from listening to our network that you share what you know.
Yeah. Yes.
Because again, there's a lot of options out there for people to get their information from. And not everyone is going to hear this.
And if you have somebody in your life who's saying how great he is or how great the Trump administration is or whatever their defense of the current White House is, ask this simple question. If Derek Van Orden was so concerned about SNAP benefits staying intact for those who need it, why did he, and if he's so concerned about rural hospitals staying open and available to the people, which they should, why did he vote for a bill that fundamentally, directly affected these things for the worse, for the people? Why did he do that? And you let them answer. And I'm sure they'll have an answer. And I'm sure they'll blame it on Hunter Biden's laptop. But really, when it comes down to it, you ask that question, and I want the answer because there is no 2 + 2 = 4 to this. This is just absolute insanity.
Derek Van Orden, again from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, voted for the federal measure that caused tens of thousands of Wisconsinites to lose Medicaid coverage. And now he wants to take credit for getting Medicaid funding through the state budget. Derek Van Orden says he helped secure $1 billion in Medicaid funding for Wisconsin and suggested Governor Evers signed the budget, quote, because I asked him personally, unquote. Evers' office, by the way, says Van Orden had nothing to do with Wisconsin's efforts to secure Medicaid funding ahead of the enactment of the bill. Van Orden supported the measure slashing federal Medicaid funds.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we are.
Yep.
855-752-4842 if you would like to join us. Jean from Eau Claire is on the line. Good morning, Jean. Thanks for joining us.
Outstanding job, guys. I strongly suggest anybody who's listening right now, please share this with your friends, this show. You guys do an outstanding job. People can listen to it out on the farm. They can listen to it when they're jogging if they don't sit and listen to the radio, but they need to listen to this Civic Media channel. Now, I have to tell you guys, you are outstanding because guess what? The whole darn time that this was going on, one of our I don't know if I can say the channel, but that have little it's an 8+ channel. It's from La Crosse area. And they always were running stuff on the bottom of what Van Orden says. And this was the thing with Evers. My local TV stations don't get out and check him out.
Right.
And they put him on the channel saying what he did or did not do. And he acted, and there was even a big paid ad with him standing next to Donald Trump with a flag going behind him during this time when they were making these decisions and him lying about this bill. So thank you guys because you are number one important in getting the word out to the people on our side of the state because we need you badly and people need this information and share with your friends because the guy's lying through his teeth and God darn it, we got to stop him. Thanks, guys. Keep it up. Bye-bye.
Thanks so
Jean.
much, Jean. Really appreciate it. And be like Jean. Jean calls her lawmakers.
Yep. And Jane, how would they go ahead and do
If
something
I
like
were
that?
so inclined to leave a polite, questioning voice message, all I have to do is go to myvote.wi.gov and put in my address, and every person who represents you in the government and their contact information will come up right there.
Yeah.
So easy.
I'm just at the point, Jane. This is a topic for me. Like when it comes to this man, I'm at my wit's end with him. I am ashamed of him. I am disappointed in him, and it makes me angry that people in Wisconsin felt like he was the right choice for their district because he's not standing up for them.
We got an election coming up next year.
God!
I know.
I thought we were done.
When we return, that's in the budget bill too. Did anybody read this thing? Anybody? We'll kick that around when we return. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Baby, what a big surprise. Right before my very eyes.
Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We got baseball coming up a little bit later on today. The Brewers hosting the Dodgers, rather. The game starts at our broadcast starts at 12:35.
We beat them again.
I know.
The world champion Dodgers.
Are you just over the moon?
I love Shohei Ohtani, but I love the Brewers more. And my goodness, I was a little nervous about yesterday's game just because in the history of the Brewers, it always seems to be we trounce a team, and then the next day they come back and shellac us.
Yeah.
And we won. It was 3-2, 3-1.
Good
and
game.
It's a good game. That's actually a more exciting game, in my opinion, than a 9-1 game.
Yeah.
But, woo.
Yeah. So, woohoo! We're all tingly. If you would like to listen to the game, you do have to listen on terrestrial radio. You can catch it on WRCE in Richland Center, WISS in Oshkosh, WRJN here in Racine and Kenosha, WCQM in Park Falls, and WBZH in Hayward.
To go back earlier, we were talking about donating blood and the good of donating blood in state, even though Texas is in Texas.
Right.
Cassandra on the live stream, who is also a nurse, said that if you donate blood in Wisconsin, it takes the pressure off other blood banks. So the more you provide for this state, the less that other states have to share with each other.
Exactly.
So thank you very much for it. I was trying to think of an answer there, and I didn't want to say it out loud because I'm like, I don't know if that's true. But thank you for confirming that, Cassandra.
Coming up after the 9:30 news, Megan Kling is going to be joining us. She had complications in her latest pregnancy and had to leave the state in order to get the health care that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
She's been very, very gracious in talking about it. She's appeared in articles in the Journal Sentinel and the Wisconsin Examiner, and I believe the New York Times. She is going to be joining us after the 9:30 news to talk about her experience and what she has heard from people since she has been brave enough. I think it's very brave to come forward and talk about something like this.
Yes, absolutely.
So that is on the way. Right now, though, the big budget bill is just full of all kinds of surprises, Greg. Nobody knows what's in it.
It's almost like some of them don't even read it.
Or even care what's in it. This is from Forbes magazine, that really widely left publication.
Yeah, right.
Forbes magazine says how Trump's bill makes it easier for the rich to buy their personal jets.
Hold on. Hold on. Jay, I need to write this down.
Okay.
Write this. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Trump's bill makes it easier for the wealthy to buy a personal jet.
Awesome.
Isn't that nice? A little discussed portion of the Trump beautiful blob of a bill hands a lucrative break to ultra wealthy Americans in the form of a tax policy to buy a private jet. Bonus depreciation for your business expenses was originally part of the Tax Cut Act in 2017. It got phased down. It was permanently set to expire by 2027. However, they've decided that you can actually, if you buy a $10 million plane, you can now use that $10 million deduction in the same year. It used to be spread out across multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can buy your $10 million plane and deduct it the same year, so it's a wash. Matthew Baer, managing director of aviation at an Oklahoma-based bank, says for someone interested in buying a jet, whether new or used, this is a very big deal.
Yeah.
This is an example of friendly oligarch rules. Says Chuck Collins, the director of the program on inequality and the common good for a think tank. He describes this as a massive tax break for billionaires and centimillionaires from the private jet lobby. $378 billion. That is how much the permanent establishment of this 100% bonus depreciation will cost taxpayers over 10 years.
Wait, say that number one more time.
$378 billion is how much making this permanent will cost taxpayers over the course of 10 years. What a great thing.
What a big, beautiful bill that was.
I can't tell you the number of friends I have who they're just going to be having a celebratory drink. Maybe now they can get 2.
I was going to say, with the money they're going to be saving, they're going to be able to buy 2 drinks. Who knows? I mean,
That's just great. And the other thing that caught Chuck Grassley by surprise, which I don't know is that big of a surprise. He's like 900 years old.
retire.
Bill introduced to combat anti-gambling measure, also in the big budget bill. They want to restore a gambler's ability to deduct 100% of their losses on their annual tax filings. In the budget bill, it was reduced to 90%. They want it back at 100%. And Chuck Grassley was asked about it, and he said, "Is that in there? I didn't know that was in there."
If anyone can hear us in Iowa, you can do better. No, I say you deserve better. I'm sorry. I'm not
deserve better.
You deserve better. Let me put it that way. You deserve better.
And we don't have a lot of time to get into this, but we mentioned it briefly. We will talk about it later in the week. The IRS now says it will allow houses of worship to endorse candidates for political office without losing their tax-exempt status. I know they've been doing this.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Not all of them.
No,
but
no.
many of them.
No.
So, yeah, you're all good to go.
Yeah.
Okay. News is coming up next, and then Megan Kling will be joining us. Please stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Hold me in the morning, love me in the afternoon. Help me find my way. Now and then, just like before, I think about the love I've thrown away. But now it doesn't matter.
Good morning, Megan. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound great. We come back from break in just over a minute.
Okay, I'm ready.
Sounds good. We're looking forward to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calby on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. She has shared her story in the Wisconsin Examiner, in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, in the New York Times, and we are so delighted and grateful to be joined by her now. Megan Kling is here. Good morning, Megan. Thanks for being here. How are you?
Oh.
Megan, can you hear me?
Looks like we might be having a little bit of...
She just froze.
Okay.
Megan had mentioned when we were setting this up that she might have a... Megan, are you there?
Hold on.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can hear you, yes. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. If
There
that
we go.
happens again, I'm going to call in, okay?
Perfect. That's perfect. Absolutely. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Technology is one of those things. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a thing. It's a thing. So anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your story, because I think it is important. And especially when I've read through all of these stories, you are not the only woman who has experienced this. You are not the only woman who is experiencing this. So if you wouldn't mind to take us through your story and what happened with your pregnancy.
Yeah, so first off, I'd like to say, I've been born and raised in Wisconsin, same as my husband. We have two beautiful little daughters, and we've always imagined having 3 children. And when we got pregnant in the summer of 2023, we didn't expect it to be any different from our prior 2 pregnancies, which were very normal and healthy, right?
Right.
So went through the routine of maternal prenatal checkups, and it wasn't until the 20-week ultrasound that we were alarmed that something was wrong. So I live in rural western Wisconsin. I went to my local rural hospital, and I happened to be over 21 weeks pregnant at the time. And after that ultrasound, my doctor, who I trust very much, came into the doctor's office and shared with me that something was very wrong, that there was little to no amniotic fluid. And with their ultrasound equipment, they could not make a confirmed diagnosis, but it was bad. And I was somewhat in shock. I wasn't prepared to ask a lot more questions. And at that time, just was clinging on to hope, right?
Sure.
We wouldn't get the most devastating news that I felt like my doctor was somewhat preparing me to get. We had to be referred to a larger hospital, which again takes time to get that appointment with maternal fetal medicine. She referred me to La Crosse as well as Rochester, Minnesota. And in my mind, if there's any surgery or any treatment that my baby is going to need, Rochester's the best place to be. So that's
Right.
where that was in my mind. We were able to get into lacrosse about 4 days later. By that time, I was 22 weeks pregnant, and my husband and I, in tears, received the most devastating news that a pregnant person could receive, and that was that our baby was non-viable. He had a diagnosis called bilateral renal agenesis. He had developed with no kidneys and no bladder, and he also had brain and heart abnormalities seen. With this condition, because the amniotic fluid is made up primarily of the baby's urine by the second trimester, that was the reason there was no amniotic fluid, because his urinary tract was not operating. And when that occurs in pregnancy, that amniotic fluid is there to help the babies develop their lungs, so his lungs would never develop. And it's also there for protection, to help him move around in the womb.
Right.
Without that amniotic fluid, these babies are born with bone deformities, because the pressure the mother's body puts on her womb forces the baby's bones to bend as they grow inside of you. And so you can imagine, I am picturing what quality of life my baby is going to have, even as he's growing inside of me. When we received that diagnosis, I asked my doctor what our options were. And she, of course, proceeded to tell me, I'm still healthy. I could continue the pregnancy if I choose. And I believe I cut her off and said, I cannot carry a baby another 4 months knowing he is going to die. It was not in my best physical wellness health. It was not in my best interest of my mental health.
Seriously.
I have a career. I've got 2 little girls I have to go home and be a mom to. And I didn't believe carrying that baby was in my own baby's best interest, because it would ultimately prolong suffering for all of us. But because that was in November of 2023, we were in a state of the 1849 complete ban on abortion.
Was still in effect here in Wisconsin.
Yep. And so I had no options in my situation to make any choice at all.
I just want to stop you for 1 second, because again, because of the law in Wisconsin at that point in your pregnancy, here in Wisconsin, you had no choices except to carry it to term, correct?
Correct.
That was it.
That was it.
And if anyone is just joining us, by the way, I just want to let people know who we're talking to. Megan Kling is our guest. We will have links in our show notes. She has appeared in several articles in the Journal Sentinel, the Wisconsin Examiner, the New York Times, talking about her experience with her third pregnancy. So continue, Megan.
So we had kept our appointment that we had made at Rochester, Minnesota, which was ultimately 10 days out from our original appointment at my local rural hospital. So by the time we were able to get into Rochester, Minnesota, I was 23 weeks and 1 day pregnant. And my choice was to be induced and deliver my baby naturally. There's no right choice in that situation, but that's what I felt was right for me and the healthcare that I wanted to choose. And so they were able to give us a second opinion. They confirmed the diagnosis without a doubt, because my husband and I just needed to know that there was no chance. And they induced me after that second opinion, and I was able to deliver our first baby boy the next morning at 23 weeks and 2 days gestation. They did not think he would survive delivery, but they prepared us in case he did. And he was ultimately born with a beating heart. And so they cleaned him up and they handed him to us. And we were able to hold and love our baby boy for about an hour until he passed away in our arms.
We're so sorry for your loss, Megan, you and your husband and your family. And I cannot imagine being in such a horrific situation with such for one thing, to not be able to get the health care you need in the state in which you live is horrible. It's just horrible. And then I'm so sorry for your experience. And I am so grateful for your willingness to talk about this, because you must have heard now from all kinds of women who have been in similar situations to yours.
Yeah, I've been able to be connected with women across the country who have experienced just devastating pregnancy complications in their journey to build their families, just like we were. And for all of us that are sharing and speaking out, there's a whole lot of women that are experiencing the same tragedy that just aren't to a point where they're willing to share
Sure.
their trauma publicly yet.
Or they're afraid of the backlash. And we'll get to that in a minute, because I'm sure that's a component of this, tragically.
And I think, Megan, one of the important things, too, it's wonderful to hear these stories, because it's telling the narrative that's getting lost by some who just want to paint access to this healthcare as nothing more than birth control, which is offensive and disgusting. And we need to hear from people such as yourself and others saying, no, you are a mother who wanted more children. You and your husband wanted to grow your family. This was a situation that happened. It is devastating, but it does happen. Therefore, you need the treatment, the access,
The health care.
that is necessary to make sure that also your body isn't damaged by what could happen in these pregnancies. So again, I'm there's not a question, and I'm holding back tears right now because I just want to thank you for being here, because it's important. Thank you.
You mentioned in some of the articles, and again, we will put these in our show notes so you can read them yourself. In the New York Times article, they speak to several other women who also went through some situations similar to yours, Megan. And several of these women had said they think it's important now to use the word abortion, because that's what it is. This is the medical term for it. A spontaneous miscarriage in medical terminology is an abortion. And there has been this effort on one side to dance around that. I have heard Republican politicians say abortion is not health care. No pregnancy should need an abortion. I have heard male politicians say that. I can't imagine how you feel when you hear, especially men, say something like that.
Yeah, and to be honest, my husband and I had a really hard time using the word abortion when we experienced our termination, because there's a stigma around it.
There is,
That is, it
absolutely.
is specifically for unwanted pregnancies, irresponsible women, and that was not our situation whatsoever. We were married, we were growing our family. This was a very much loved, wanted baby.
Right?
And yet, we who never thought we would choose abortion were put in an impossible situation with no good outcome, where that choosing abortion was the best choice for us at the time.
Megan Kling is our guest. We are talking about her experience with a pregnancy in which tragically she lost her very much wanted son, and the fact at that point in time, Wisconsin was still under the 1849 ban. So in order to get the health care that you needed, you had to leave the state. You had to go to Minnesota. Obviously, the situation is different now in Wisconsin on the ground. That has changed. But there are still women all over this country who are in similar situations to yours. And many of them, we had a listener call into a different show, to Todd Alba's show, and say, well, it's not like anyone is making women carry these babies when they're dead. They are. This is tragically the horrific reality of what women across the country, depending upon where you live, are dealing with. It is. We're going to continue with Megan Kling, and continue this conversation. It's important to talk about. I want to hear what you have heard after your bravery in coming forward to share your experience. Our conversation continues on the other side. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Cal B on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Our guest is Megan Kling. She is here to share her experience with complications in her third pregnancy. She ultimately ended up leaving the state in order to get the health care that she needed. You made an important point, Megan, during the break about even though the 1849 ban is no longer in effect here in Wisconsin, that would have still meant that you would have had to leave the state to get the care you needed because of the 23-week ban, right?
Well, there's still some lack of clarity there. So many people refer to Wisconsin having a 20-week ban. I believe what the law technically says is 20 weeks post-fertilization, which is technically more like 22 weeks, but nobody measures pregnancy post likely fertilization. So
Right.
hospitals or doctors are always going to be a little bit more hesitant.
They're
And
going to
so
hedge. Yeah.
they're going to hedge it right at 20 weeks.
Yep.
So for most women who receive that 20-week ultrasound, if there is any severe complication or diagnosis like we received, it's too late already.
You have to leave the state.
Correct.
Yes. Megan, were you aware before you got this diagnosis that this was the situation on the ground in Wisconsin? Did you know at that point that you were going to have to go someplace else?
I think I was a little naive. I understood what Roe v. Wade being overturned meant. I understood that Wisconsin had no exceptions to abortion. However, I was naive to all of the numerous pregnancy complications that can occur that would lead to an abortion for medical reasons. And so even though I understood the atmosphere of where Wisconsin was at, I did not think that I, as a married woman trying to grow my family, I didn't think it was going to affect me. And I was very wrong for being that naive.
But you're not alone, and you're not alone. There are a lot of women, I think, and again, you had 2 perfectly fine pregnancies where nothing went wrong. So I can see why would you even let that cross your brain if that hadn't been your experience up to that point?
I just also think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, is that we equate abortion to a certain type of person, which is never the case. It's always there's always different stories, but we are becoming more educated throughout these past few years on what this does and what this impacts on the women who are having the children, the families it affects, us. Even as, Dr. Lyerly has said, this affects all of us, regardless of your station in life. And it's important for us to know this. So again, Megan, thank you for coming here and sharing your story. And we ask those listening to share this story with other people, because it's just very easy to say, well, of course I support abortion access. But what do you know about it? You need to know. Before you can advocate and endorse, you must know. So it's important to hear these stories. We must hear more of these stories.
Again, we've mentioned, Megan, that you've been in the Journal Sentinel and the Wisconsin Examiner, or even the New York Times. What have you heard from folks because I think that's very brave. It takes a lot of courage to come forth like this and be honest and open about it. It does.
I would say I have had overwhelming positive support from people, from community members, family, strangers, just thanking me for speaking up and helping them understand that just a typical Midwest mom can be affected by abortion bans. And it doesn't matter how you feel on the topic. Anyone can be affected, whether you think so or not. But it is very controversial, and it's been very vulnerable to share such a tragedy publicly.
Yep.
You open yourself up, and there always is going to be some negativity out there. And I think a majority of that comes from either an extreme religious side or those that just don't like me sharing my story because it doesn't fit the stigma that they believe abortion to be, right?
Yeah. Yep. You're not the person they want to demonize. You're not the right person to demonize.
I also think telling this story for Midwesterners especially pokes at our convenience and comfortability. Like, well, you don't have to share it with everybody. Talk about it with your friends and say, blah, blah, like whatever the excuse is. But really it comes to you standing up and exposing yourself and being vulnerable, and other people just have to deal with that. And if it makes them feel uncomfortable, I'm sorry for them, but we need to hear this.
It's about the reality of what's happening on the ground. It is. It's just, that's what it is about. How is your husband? How are your girls? How are you right now?
Right now I'm good. I was lucky enough to find access to a therapist that specializes in infant loss. And after giving birth to a baby who died in our arms, I can't tell you how hard that was to work through that grief and then the anger that compounded from being shamed away from my home state in order to do what I knew was right for me.
Yep.
But we're doing good. I mean, it was a fork in the road, and we chose to be resilient, and I could not have it be just a sad story that we experienced. And so I chose to share, and I chose to speak up in hopes that, I can cause just find a little bit of good from this horrible thing we went through.
Megan Kling, thank you so very, very much for joining us this morning. All the best to you and your husband and your girls. Take care of yourself. Be strong. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have news coming up next. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We got baseball coming up in just a little bit. Crew hosting the Dodgers again. Our broadcast starts at 12:35. You can listen to the game, but you need to listen on terrestrial radio. So catch all the action on WBZH in Hayward, WRCE in Richland Center, WISS in Oshkosh, WRJN here in Racine and Kenosha, and WCQM in Park Falls. Crew hosting the Dodgers today. Our broadcast starts at 12:35. Coming up this hour, no more shoes. We'll talk about flying shoes, flying with shoes flying in just a little bit.
Shoe fly shoe.
Shoe fly shoe. After the news at the bottom of the hour, we will come back with audio survey as we always do. It's a little opportunity to take a cleansing breath, get away from the news, and have a couple laughs.
Yeah.
So today's audio sorbet is, do you pajama?
Or do you pajama?
Or do you not at all?
Or, yeah.
Or maybe you wear something else.
Hey, all I ask is that the responses stay not TMI
That would be
and
nice.
FCC compliant.
That is always important, yes. So Do You Pajama is our audio sorbet coming up after 10:30.
Yeah.
And we will wrap up the show as we always do with this Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today is a rose by any other name really a rose? A rose is a rose is a rose. Is it?
Yeah, I'm not calling it that completely. That's a long
It's a
time.
long title, but that's coming up around 10:51-ish, so stick around for that. Great news, everybody.
Yeah?
Great news.
What's up?
The mass deportations will continue, and they're not going to spare anybody, but it's all good because Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins has the answer on what's going to happen. Calvin, I believe we have a clip from Brooke Rollins. Let's take a listen, please.
There's been a lot of noise in the last few days and a lot of questions about where the president stands in his vision for farm labor. The first thing I'll say is the president has been unequivocal that there will be no amnesty. And I think that's very, very important. I and the rest of our cabinet certainly support that, effectuate that, and make sure that happens every single day. The second thing, to your question about mass deportations, the president and I have spoken about that once or twice, and he has always been of the mindset that at the end of the day, the promise to America to ensure that we have a 100% American workforce stands, but we must be strategic in how we are implementing the mass deportations so as not to compromise our food supply.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the answer on this is automation, also
yes.
some reform within the current governing structure.
Okay.
And then also when you think about there are 34 million able-bodied adults in our Medicaid program.
There it is.
There are plenty of workers in
There it
America, but we just have to make sure we're not compromising today, especially in the context of everything we're thinking about right now. So no amnesty under any circumstances.
No.
Mass deportations continue, but in
Yeah.
a strategic and intentional way as we move our workforce toward more automation and toward a 100% American workforce.
Jane, really quick question
Yeah.
as a follow-up, because I wish I was there right now. Because
I
I would ask
know.
Secretary Rollins, I wanted to call her Brooke, Secretary Brooke, the following question. Do you feel like you could describe the last, we're now 6 months, almost 6 months into this administration. Would you describe the immigration policy as intentional and with good, like as she described it, with good with intention and proper planning and whatnot? Would you call it that? Would you say that?
It's been a mess.
It's been a mess.
It's been an absolute disorganized nightmare.
So what
And-
leads you to believe that they will handle what she's talking about right now with any sort of measure of long-term planning?
None.
None.
Yeah, I have very little confidence in that, but I think the really important piece there is the 36 million people who are on Medicaid who apparently don't deserve to get those benefits because you're lazy. So good news. There's jobs going to be waiting for you
In the field.
in the fields.
Yep.
We have talked to Will Sue, who is
Yeah.
a ginseng farmer in Wisconsin. We have talked about how labor intensive it is in that specific instance to grow ginseng.
Yes.
They have to be tended by humans.
Yes.
There is no way right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe there is, but I don't believe there is. There is no way right now to automate the work that those ginseng workers are doing. There just isn't.
Well, I listened to a response video to this yesterday, and the woman clearly said on the video that the jobs that are automated in the farming world have already been done.
Right.
There is a certain point to which humans need to be in the process. Okay, so let's take that perfectly logical statement, Jane, and let's put it to the side and pretend like it's a lie. Fake news. So, in order for farmers then to automate more, or maybe give small farms the opportunity to automate more because they can't afford to do it, so that's why they actually have people on their teams, they're probably going to need incentives, tax credits, tax breaks, maybe even, just the ability to purchase with maybe a governmental loan that you can spread over more time at a lower rate. Even with certain things that say like, hey, you must do X, Y, and Z to get this to be qualified for the.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be impossible now because you've taken all the ability to take tax money, divert it into programs for farmers because you're allowing billionaires to write off their private planes. So I don't know. Once again, this is the administration of great intentions, but with no plan whatsoever. And by the way, I also just want to say something real quick here because I know I'm getting real squirrely today. This narrative of the, quote, able-bodied on Medicaid is never fully fleshed out to talk about the fact that individuals who are on Medicaid aren't... This isn't 36 million people sitting on their butts, eating chips, playing video games, doing nothing, and collecting a check. These are people who have jobs, too.
Yes.
These are people who work for companies who we give tremendous tax breaks to, who say, you should go on your state Medicaid program because our insurance isn't good or we don't want to cover you in the first place.
Hello, Walmart.
So really when it comes down to, let's really talk about those 36 million able-bodied people, because I'm sure they would love to have a job that was better paying, that gave better benefits, but we don't require that in this country. Therefore, they have to go on state Medicaid, and they're still working. They're the working poor, and they're the people you now just want to quit their jobs and go work in the fields, probably for no benefits
And no insurance.
and probably less money. I mean, this is shameful again. This is disgusting. And she stands there with this might in her voice to say, like, we will. I mean, I've never heard a person speak with more confidence of draconian, horrific treatment of individuals in mass deportations with no amnesty. But man, we're going to get people working.
Well, like the lazy people.
Yeah,
The lazy people.
so we're gonna drive to Walmart. We're gonna once ICE gets rid of all the undocumented people, and that's all done. America then starts becoming great. It will only get better when they redirect those ICE agents to businesses across this country to snatch those workers who are on Medicaid off their jobs, whether it's the assembly lines of Amazon or the warehouses of Walmart, and put them in the fields to say, hey, I like avocados. Keep picking. What is this? What is this?
855-752-4842. If you would like to join the conversation, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins yesterday says, don't worry, we're going to continue mass deportations, no amnesty, and worried about all the immigrants that are picking produce in our fields. Don't worry about it. We have people on Medicaid who are going to do that, apparently, according to this administration. 855-752-4842. Sue from Franklin texting in, listening on WAUK. This is a thing that frustrates me. Reporters don't ask hard questions to this administration. And if they do, they get some BS answer. They don't push back and ever ask the tough questions. You're absolutely right.
Correct.
And
Correct.
they don't do follow-ups.
No.
They just take the answer and then someone else moves on. I would love to see some other reporter continue the follow-up question from the previous reporter.
Unfortunately, and this is the thing, is where you have to separate the reporter almost from the media outlet, because I am sure that these individuals want to ask the follow-ups and pressure for hard answers and really get, either get an answer or expose them for being liars and frauds, which Brooke Rollins is. But they have bosses, and those bosses have bosses, and those bosses have shareholders.
And they
or
want
buddies.
access.
Or they also have buddies in the White House, and they're being told, we don't want to lose our access to the White House. Just go easier. I'm not telling you can't do it. Just go. But what's easier then? Where's the definition then? And that's the hard part, is that I guarantee you that a lot of the individuals in that White House press corps want the truth. They want transparency. They want answers. But they're having their hands tied by the corporate outlets they work for. And
there's certainly a piece of that in there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 5752-4842. Dinah from the Wausau area is on the phone. Good morning, Dinah. Thanks for joining us. What do you want to say about this?
Hello, this is Dave.
Oh, Dave, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Yeah, on the topic of the Medicare and Medicaid issue, I have a renter in my house who's like 58 years old. He's about 375 pounds. Obviously, he's on Medicaid, and he's also on full disability. He works part-time, like 4 hours every morning. So if they take a disability, if they take Medicaid, how is he going to pay for his medical care? And say he works for Sue's Ginseng, he's going to have a heart attack out in the field. Who's going to drag his body off? Yeah. Is that going to be a workers' comp claim?
Yeah, it's just, Dave, there's I just feel like this administration likes to come out and say, here's the fix, super easy, let's move on. Without, again, and I've gone back to this from the beginning, they don't look at what happens if you do A. Then what is the potential B? What is C? What is D? What are consequences from these decisions? I don't think they look that far.
No, and Dave, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Dave.
So much for calling. I'll give you the canned response that would come out of the Trump administration if your renter had to go in the field and, God forbid, passed away while working. They would say, it's a terrible thing that happened, but some people just aren't meant for that kind of work, I guess. Or it was a terrible thing that happened, but he did what he could to help us. It would never be an admission of guilt,
ever,
of wrongdoing in their planning. I'm sorry, I use that word very loosely, but it would be because they don't care. Because they don't care about those 36 minutes. They would have them work for free. They would take them off Medicaid immediately and throw them in the field and say, work and be happy you've got the job. And you can eat some food. Eat some food from the field too while you're at it.
Well, and the other thing, and we've talked about this previously. How are they going to determine who deserves to be on Medicaid or not? Are they meeting individually with these 36 million people? No. From what I understand, it is going to be about the paperwork.
Yep.
That's how they're going to filter through who should get Medicaid or not without knowing the specific cases and what is involved.
myvote.wi.gov. Talk to your leaders. Talk to your representatives.
Give them a call.
Give them a call.
Say hi. See how they're doing.
Be nice.
When we return, shoes.
I love
Flying.
them. Yeah.
Flying shoes.
Oh.
All coming up. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. And now, if you have the Civic Media app, you can not only call and text directly from the app, but you can leave us a voice note. So do that as well. And again, join us at 855-752-4842. After the 10:30 news, it's Audio Sorbet, where we get away from the news and just talk about silly things for a little bit so we can all take a collective mental breath.
Yes.
Do you pajama?
Do you pajama?
Do you pajama? That's what we're wondering about. I'm not trying to get any visual images or anything. It's just what we're... Do you pajama? There are people who love pajamas. They say, I see at Christmas time, it's all buy pajamas. So we're talking about pajamas after 10:30, and then we'll wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Is a rose by any other name still a rose? Is a rose is a rose?
His edition.
Edition of Tisbat. That's around 10:51. This came by, and I think it's something we can all go, yay. We can all agree on this, I hope.
Yeah.
We don't have to take our shoes off anymore.
Like
when you go through the airport.
Like immediately?
According to WLWT5 reporter Sean McKinnon, at least in Kentucky, a surprise midweek policy change in effect at airports across the country. If you are flying, you can now keep your shoes on while going through TSA. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says TSA put the policy of no shoes into effect in 2006, almost 20 years ago. This all goes back to 2001. And the one guy who tried to set explosives in his shoes on fire, Richard Reed.
Wow.
Didn't work, but it was enough. This was, again, 2001. To institute this policy. So we have all, if you've flown anywhere in the last 20 years, you know this about the taking off of the shoes. Now I guess we don't have to do that anymore. Homeland Security, Kristi Noem says new technology like biometric scanning makes shoe removal obsolete. We've added new scanners, new technologies, more TSO officers in some areas. Real ID also gives us another layer of security, knowing who is going through our checkpoints and who isn't. When asked if the no-shoes policy was security theater, Noem said everything the TSA does and requires their travelers to do has always been necessary.
Until this very moment when it wasn't necessary.
When it wasn't necessary anymore.
Why do they even talk sometimes, Jane? God.
Noem says rules like taking out your laptops and the liquids and bags are still in place for now, but Homeland Security is reviewing them.
Great.
So that might change too.
You know, I'm just going to say this right now. If this would have been the Biden administration doing such a measure, my thought would have been shrug. Okay, why did I just pay $75 for TSA pre-check? The fact that the Trump administration is doing it, it's now what my answer is. Shrug. Why did I pay $75? So I'm just going to say this. I didn't care either way who did this. I just think it's ridiculous that after nearly 20 years still had to, which I'll tell a short story.
Okay.
A couple years ago, I was flying, and they were very, very understaffed at the check-in. And at one point, a lady just gets up and says out loud, keep your laptops in your bag, keep your shoes on your feet, keep your belts on. We're not doing that today. And I'd always thought that this seemed like rather arbitrary, these policies.
Yes.
That declaration from a TSA worker confirmed my beliefs that it's Tuesday. Leave the belts on. It's fun.
It's interesting that you say that because when I flew to see my friend in Texas in March, in Milwaukee, I had to take them off, not in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really did seem to be kind of arbitrary depending upon where you were.
Yeah.
But at least for my husband, who has a spinal cord injury, and he is not very bendy,
yeah,
that was truly a pain.
Yes.
taking his shoes off and putting them back on is not poof, poof, slide him on, slide him off. That's not how he has a spinal cord injury. It affects his life.
Yeah.
So this is nice. But too, that's why we had global entry, so we were able to get around that.
Yep. And I have TSA pre-check. And I also would, towards the end, what I would do is, even in cold weather, I would travel in shorts, flip-flops, and a T-shirt. There was as little to take off as possible. I could flip the shoes off and put them back on, because if you're in Milwaukee, you're always getting caught in the recombobulation area. That's a plug for Dan Schaefer. Trying to get all your stuff off the conveyor belt.
Yep.
Because it goes from, I've just got a backpack to this to 4 things of
bins.
crud.
Yeah, of stuff.
So yeah, I don't know. It's like great. This could have happened 15 years ago.
And by the way, Drake Bentley in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, recombobulation area to remain at Mitchell Airport after shoe policy change. So we will still have a place to recombobulate.
Also,
even without the removal of shoes.
And if you can't do that at the airport because you'd need a ticket, you can always recombobulate with us on Fridays at 10:20 or 10 o'clock with Dan Schaefer, Civic Media's award-winning political editor.
You can also subscribe to the recombobulation
Absolutely.
area.
See, Dan, how we did that? We turned this entire story into a plug.
It's a deal, though.
Yes,
it's
is.
It's a great deal.
Absolutely.
All right, we have news coming up next, and then when we return, as we promised or threatened...
Audio sorbet, a promise or a threat?
We're not sure. Do you pajama? That's coming up. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on this Civic Media Radio Network.
To the sea, fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle, I'm free, right through the revolution.
I'm a hot mama jamma, I jam in my pajamas. I put on my pajamas and then I go bananas. I'm a hot mama jamma, I jam in my pajamas. I put on
Good
my
morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Cal B, bringing it. Coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream. On Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter, Brewers are going to be hosting the Dodgers in a little bit. Our broadcast starts today at 12:35. And if you would like to listen to the game as the crew hopefully take another one from the Dodgers, our broadcast starts 12:35. Listen to the game on terrestrial radio on WRCE in Richland Center, WISS in Oshkosh, WRJN here in Racine and Kenosha, WCQM Park Falls, and our newest affiliate in Hayward, WBZH.
We've already won the series because we took 2 out of 3 games. If we sweep the Dodgers,
You'll just be over the moon.
I will be in hog heaven.
I know.
I will be in hog heaven. I'll be so happy.
We'll be talking sports tomorrow
Yeah, we will.
at this time.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we'll
Take a
have
back seat, Bucks.
We'll
It's
have-
Brewers time.
hopefully we'll have another victory to talk about tomorrow when we talk a little bit about sports. Right now, though, it is the portion of the program we call Audio Sorbet. It's where we lighten things up to take a breath. Cleansing for the ears, a cleansing for just a break for your brain.
Break for our brains,
Break for
too.
our brains, too. That's not a bad point. Do you pajama? This is apropos of absolutely nothing, but it was something that came up last week.
So, no, it was...
Well, off the air when we were kicking
Yeah.
around in the office before we
we
came
were
on the air.
in this room, and we have a television that plays behind us running the news, so it's no wonder we're always in such a bad mood. And there was just a commercial with a gentleman wearing traditional pajamas, which, you know, the button-down top and,
Right.
and the pants,
And
and,
the- yep.
PJ pants.
Yeah.
And I just found it interesting that it was such a, I'm going to say it, old-timey image, because I don't think I know a single person who wears traditional pajamas, like the button down. And I'm gonna speak from the men's side of it, because
Okay.
like, you know, but even women's versions are the same thing. It's the button down long sleeve shirt and
the same kind
pants.
of, but if you're going to, it's a nightgown.
A nightgown, which
Yeah.
I would say is monumentally more comfortable, in my opinion, because for me personally, I do not pajama in the traditional. I mean, I wear what I would call my PJs, and that's just, sorry folks, a pair of shorts. Because anything beyond that, I'm tossing and turning.
It's too
I
much.
can't wear a shirt on bed. It's just weird. And people who are like, I slept in my clothes last night. I'm like, how did you sleep at all then? Because
I don't get that at
seems
all.
impossible. So the image of a gentleman just wearing his pajamas, being like, I'm about to go to bed now. I'm like, wow, they're still doing that?
They look so neat,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They look so neat.
Yes, absolutely. They're not wrinkled or like, you know, there's not a button
freshly
missing.
ironed pajamas.
Exactly.
It's probably, I'm sure it's different if you have children. If you have kids who might be walking in your room in the middle of the night or waking you up in the middle of the night, you probably wear more traditional pajamas.
Mhm.
Don't you think?
I don't know. I mean, no.
Or
Because
at least have a robe nearby.
No, growing up in my family, my dad wore shorts to bed too, and he
Did
didn't
he?
wear. No, we never wore a shirt.
My father wore pajamas.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think our parents are as different ages, so
Just by about 20 or 30 years. Do you pajama? 855-752-4842. If not, like Greg, what substitutes for your pajamas?
What are your PJs?
What are your PJs? 855-752-4842. Breaking down the really important topics right now during Audio Sorbet. I love the commercials when I see them at Christmas, because that always seems to be buy mom new pajamas and a fluffy robe.
Yeah.
Or they used to sell some really, really expensive like pajamagram things. Those were like $95.
Oh yeah, those are still around. Like, you want your husband's face on your pajamas, and I'd be like, I don't want anyone's face on my pajamas. There was a great SNL sketch about that where it was, you know, it was a four person family. The The dad got a watch. The kid got a laptop. The other kid got a smartwatch. And the mom's like, I got a robe.
Oh, nice.
Like, just that notion of, like, get mom a robe. Is that what she wants?
And how many robes do you go through in a year?
I just have the one robe that I literally have had the same robe for like 20 years. And
Right.
it's comfy, it's wonderful, and I will never get rid of it.
And it does the job
Exactly.
of a robe.
Exactly.
Do You Pajama, 855-752-4842. Sarah from Green Bay at WGBW. I love the long T-shirt type pajamas. I own at least 10 of them.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's like, I feel like that's a modern take on a nightgown. Is this right? Yeah, nightgown.
Yeah,
Because
nightgown.
yes, you want to be covered, but you also don't want to be constricted. And I feel like traditional pajamas restrict you. Yes.
If you would like to join this earth-shattering conversation, Do You Pajama at 855-752-4842. Whistler from Racine is on the line. Good morning, Whistler. What pajamas? Yes? No? Some other thing? What are you pajamaing in?
I wear just my drawers and
Yep.
a tank top,
There you go.
and I'm comfortable. Light blanket over me. The wife, she wears a nightgown and tucks herself in. That's just bizarre. You know?
You should talk to my husband, Whistler, because he says the same thing about me. He's nuts. In the house, I wear a sweatshirt because we have the air conditioning on and I'm always cold.
Yeah. Well, why don't you turn the air conditioning off? Or
Because
turn
then
it
it gets
down?
too hot.
Oh my God.
I'm just happy the way I am. Leave me alone. Right, Whistler?
Sweat too much, and I'm in RC, Richland Center.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, not Racine, Richland Center. Sorry about that, Whistler.
Yeah,
Our mistake.
Sorry about that.
that's fine.
Appreciate it. Thank you for calling in. You can join us as well at 855-752-4842. Do you pajama? If you don't, what's your alternative? Jesse from Dane County listening on WAUK. I do not pajama. Haven't since high school. I've got to be free to move while I sleep.
There you go.
And John from Oshkosh listening on WAUK. How does Greg know nightgowns are more comfy? I'm a shorts at night guy, too.
I got two answers for you, John from Oshkosh. One, it just seems like a logical conclusion. It's a flowy piece of fabric.
As opposed to a pair of pants.
Exactly. And two, if I knew, I'd tell you. I am not ashamed.
See, and
Plus-
I can't do nightgowns.
Plus, also, men used to wear nightgowns. They used to wear a long...
Watch Scrooge.
Yes, exact. Watch any version of A Christmas Carol, and you will see the long frock that men used to wear to bed, along with a hat. I don't understand the hat. Why would you wear a hat to bed?
That's a really interesting question. We'll have to look at that. John says no judgment, friend.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's no judgment. I'm sure there's no judgment.
Do you pajama at 855-752-4842? If not, what do you wear? When we were kids, I think that was a Christmas thing for us. We always all, because there were 6 of us.
Yeah.
So we all got like matching pajamas of some kind or another. And ours, I believe I always got nightgowns. I never did we didn't get the top and the bottom PJs.
My sister, who, by the way, happy birthday, Amy. Today is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Amy.
Even to this day, and the kids will be 20 and 24 this year. Still, every year, always get new pajamas. Every year, yeah, and they open them on Christmas Eve,
and they wear them,
and they model them, and they're like, "Look at us!" And they're essentially adults, but they still love that tradition of getting new pajamas. Especially for my nephew Ben, who went from being 4'5" to 8'11". He is a tall drink of water of a human being. But yeah, I mean, I think that's fun. But it's also a T-shirt and what we call cloud pants are very soft. They're
Cotton.
No. Well, yeah, yes, but like there's even softer. Like there's a soft. Yes. So every year they get those, and those are their pajamas, and they would wear them until the next year and whatnot. But yeah, there's more of a tradition than like, well, it's time for me to get ready for bed, and I must take my watch off and wind it for tomorrow.
Put on my Tuesday pajamas.
Exactly.
Do you pajama? 855-752-4842. Calvin, resident young person, I'm curious what things are like in the Butenoff household.
Well, I've never really been a big on pajamas. I just, as Whistler put it, I sleep in my drawers. I need to have a t-shirt on because I don't like the feeling of my arm touching my like skin on skin of myself for whatever reason.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I don't really like pajamas. I know my dad is the same way. He just wears underwear and he takes his shirt off. My mom, I think, wears a nightgown, but yeah, we're not really big on pajamas in my house.
I can't nightgown.
Is it weird that every time I think about someone having a night, whether it's a man or a woman, I just also think of them holding a candle with the
With a hat on their
Yeah,
head.
like, ooh, it's spooky down here. What woke me up tonight?
I'm a very restless sleeper, and
Yeah.
my legs go. I'm
Yeah.
kicking all over the place, and nightgowns drove me crazy. It just drove me crazy. So I wear a t-shirt. I wear a cotton t-shirt.
I don't think so. I think because of the CPAP and I'm sleeping deeper now, I'm getting better sleep. I don't think my legs kick as much as they used to, but I used to kick my legs so much that I would wear a hole in the sheets.
I've done that.
Yes, you have. Okay, that's fine. Admit it.
And almost every morning when I wake up, the corner of the bed at the bottom is out.
Oh, God. Especially when you're in a hotel because you're like, I feel like I paid for this. I paid for a more convenient sleep.
Hotels are so bad that I have to go loosen it up from the corner because otherwise, because they're so tight when you stay at a hotel
I like the tightness
that it's going to
of it.
fight me back.
But at the corner by the pillow, it always comes up. It always comes up, and you do that weird thing where you try to lift your body with one motion to try to get it back down, but that never works.
That's not
never
going to work.
works.
No, that's a nice try, but
Yeah, yeah.
Do you pajama? 855-752-4842. Bill from Waukesha says no.
All right. Well, there is an answer.
Au natural. Fair enough. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean
if you're comfy.
That's a confidence I'll never own. But hey, you do your thing.
Be happy.
To quote John from Oshkosh, no judgment here, friend.
Yes, no, everything in between.
Yeah.
That works.
Mean, honestly, like if you want to wear the traditional pajamas, go for it. If that's what you're comfy with, if that's what you like, then hey, do your thing, Jelly Bean. I knew somebody who used to sleep in full pajamas, and she wore all the things you would wear during the day as well, including socks. I don't get it.
Wait.
Yeah.
She would wear a bra?
Yeah. Yep.
To bed?
Yep.
To sleep?
Yeah.
And she slept?
I guess. I wasn't there. That would be weird because I'd be like, hey, I need to experiment and understand why you're doing it. But yeah,
yeah, you don't want to go there.
And
with
it was
your
in
friend.
that tone of like, yeah, it's just what I do because that's what I'm comfortable with sleeping. I'm like, I don't understand how you could be comfortable sleeping like that. But you know, again,
no judgment, friend.
No judgment.
No judgment.
Do your thing, Jelly Bean.
No judgment.
Live your life. I'm just going to assume all those who didn't flood our phone lines or text lines with calls and texts with information on this matter, they all wear flowy nightgowns.
You think that's what it is? With a cap?
Men, women, and my non-binary friends, they all just and a cap.
And a cap.
And pince nez, like the glasses that go on the bridge of your nose. They're all people who lived in the 20s.
Whatever.
That's what I want.
Okay. If that makes you happy.
It makes me so happy.
Last word, Calvin, or are we good?
Well, I just think that not that I've never worn a nightgown, not that I'm saying I wouldn't be open to it, but they're historically, I think, neutral gendered.
Yes.
Grandpa Joe from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory wears a nightgown.
Yes, he does.
Good point.
I think all of them do.
All right. When we return, we will wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the vast, statewide, countrywide, global on the app, Civic Media Radio Network.
I put on my pajamas and then I go banana. I'm a hot mama jamma. I jam in my pajamas. I put on my pajamas and then I go banana.
Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Cal B on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Tomorrow is Thursday already.
Whoa.
We had a short week.
We had 2 short weeks.
We had 2 short weeks. We did. So, but tomorrow is Thursday already. So that means that Jim Santel will be here. Our friend and colleague from Amicus, a law review. He has a great show on Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 across the network. Lots of things to talk about with Jim Santel.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
regarding
there's
immigration and legal immigration and there's so many things trying to keep track of. So Jim Santel will be here in hour number 2. Brittany Merlot, Civic Media's award-winning meteorologist, will be back for a little weather and wine. And then is it JR tomorrow?
Tomorrow is J.R. Radcliffe. He
J.R.
is
Radcliffe
back.
from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel will be joining us after the 10:30 news to talk all things sports. Hopefully, we'll be talking about that sweep.
Yeah, Brewers sweep. Do it. I
Hopefully
believe in
they-
you, the Brewers.
Yep, the Brewers will sweep the Dodgers today. That is all coming your way tomorrow, so I hope you can join us for that. Right now, though, Calvin, it is 10:54. That means it's time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you ever find a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at Jane Says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Calvin, again, finding this one. From The Verge, headline reads, and there's no byline on this, unfortunately. The headline reads, AI is ruining houseplant communities.
Are you? What? I don't understand what the laugh is for, because you're a houseplant person. You love plants.
I love plants.
Yeah.
I guess I laugh because it seems ludicrous to me.
Okay.
People are seeing AI-generated images online of plants that don't exist. And then they go to their local garden center and say, I want the black bleeding heart, like I saw online.
It's a terrible name for something.
Well, there are bleeding hearts. They're white and pink. But AI generated a picture of a black bleeding heart. And so we have people showing up gardening stores going, I want this plant that I saw. It doesn't exist.
So at that point, shouldn't the person holding the picture in their hand or their phone in their hand go, oh, my mistake, I'm sorry, and walk out and then just live their life in quiet contemplation of the choices they make?
But the bigger problem is plant care misinformation
Oh, my.
is being regurgitated by AI chatbots and apps. So if you're going to clip your leaf cuttings to help them grow, or you want to use cinnamon, AI is now a part of a larger misinformation ecosystem that includes plant influencers. Plant influencers exist.
Well,
They are citing sources that don't exist.
Yeah.
Sound like the Trump administration. And repeating plant care myths.
I mean, it makes total sense. Well, no, let's take the walk to this. We have the internet. We have social media. In social media, we have influencers. We have influencers for darn near everything.
Yes.
There shouldn't be any shock that there are plant influencers. And just like exercise influencers and music influencers and news and politics influencers, misinformation is there's no reason why the plant talk, if I'm going to start, I'm calling that.
I like that.
I just called it that. Plant talk.
Plant talk.
Shouldn't be the victim of the same thing. Of course, there are going to be people out there who are going to either misuse their expertise for various reasons, usually for paid promotion, or people who don't know what they're talking about speaking out of pocket and saying, hey, get yourself a black bleeding heart plant. And whatever.
Pour salt on it.
It doesn't matter to them what you do, because they want your engagement, they want your
They want
comments,
the click,
the share, and they definitely want you to come back and say, hey, This isn't real. This is AI. How dare blah, 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 because all engagement. That's all the things matter.
That's all that matters.
So, of course, Plant Talk has a rot in the roots.
Oh, look at you.
You listening, WBA?
Most plant communities on Reddit actually ban AI-generated images. Very strong feelings against AI-generated plant care advice. Some community members say it's just wrong and don't take human variables into account. Plant care varies where the plant owner lives. If you're a beginner or you're more experienced, and certainly the conditions in your house and all of these things play into this. I guess the whole point is be a little more suspicious.
Do 2 Google searches.
2, yes.
And also be nice to the people at the plant store if you fall victim to this hoax. And also poor people at the plant store who now have to educate themselves on this aspect of life. They just want to be in the plant world and love plants and talk about them. Now they have to rebuff and defend now. And Tony Zimmerman has a great fix for this whole thing. If you have black paint, then you can have a black bleeding heart. Perfect. Thank you for providing solutions, Tony.
Tony, we'll just go to him.
Exactly.
We'll go to Tony's and he'll answer everything for us. That wraps up today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Thank you, Greg and Calvin, and all of our engineers. Without you, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and for texting and for listening. It really means the world. I hope you find some joy today and you get the chance to share it. Keep it right here. We got news coming up next on the Civic Media Radio Network. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.